But I do have to say, one of the, I guess the biggest fights I'd ever seen ministerial students get into was about that song. It was kind of we got in a fight over whether or not all of our thoughts really are prayers. And now think about it, what you're really saying. Every single thought you have is a prayer. Some people didn't like that idea a whole lot. And they were willing to fight to prove that that idea was not correct. But here's the thing. That idea that our thoughts are prayers, that idea that everything that we're thinking helps to create our reality, yeah, we can kind of start quibbling over just how accurate the thought of, oh my God, I'm so tired. Man, I kind of have to pee. When is he going to wrap this talk up? We can argue over whether or not those are really prayers. But what they point us to is the truth that we, as spiritual beings, have the power to create the world that we experience. Right? And so, what that means is that this can be a world of peace, harmony, abundance for all, where all of the children of the world gather together and hold hands and sing in harmony for more reasons than somebody gave them a Coke. It also means that we can find ourselves locked in a cycle where we're living in a world filled with negativity, filled with anger, filled with hatred, filled with rage, filled with disbelief. And friends, that's the world we find ourselves locked into right now. We find ourselves locked into this struggle of feeling worry and guilt and anger and rage and frustration. But the truth of the matter is, we have the ability to create the world we experience. I believe that the thoughts that I hold, the beliefs that I hold, the experiences that I engage in, the dialogue that I have with other people, that these things allow us to create the world that we want to experience. I believe we can make a difference in the world that we're experiencing right now. And I believe that Unity has the tools to teach us how to do that. And so if somebody asked me, what is the most important thing? What is the most important tool that Unity can teach this world that we can then go out and make a difference in our world? What is the one thing we should be focused on? And be our thoughts. Yeah, I would say it's the spiritual law that what we sow is what we reap. That the thoughts that we hold create our reality. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that if you go out and you have a negative experience, that negative experience is going to create another negative experience, and that creates another negative experience, and that creates another one, and then you see how the cycle starts going. But if we sow what we reap, and if negativity breeds negativity, then good would breed what? Good, right. Good would be good, breed good. And that's what we're focusing on. It is incumbent upon each one of us as spiritual seekers to go out and to be the change that we want to be. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again today. This is not new stuff. This is something that our master teacher, Jesus, taught us. Paul wrote about it. In fact, let me just share it with you. I know we've got a Bible around here somewhere. Steve, did you see it back there? I did not see it back there. You did? Oh man, I know. Has anybody seen the Bible? Oh, good, here we go. All right. So this is what Paul wrote in his letter to the Galatians. And just so you know, when you're looking at the letters of Paul, not all of them were written by Paul. There are a lot of them that were written by other people that may or may not have had a bias that they were trying to push into the church. And then like, look, Paul wrote it. It says right here. This is one we know was written by Paul. And that's important. Because out of all of the stuff in the Christian scriptures about Jesus, our teacher, Paul is the closest to Jesus in the timeline. He's more likely to know what was going on and be less informed by people that were writing 80, 90, 100 years after everything happened. So in Paul's letter to the Galatians, he writes, "Do not be deceived." This is Galatians 6:7. "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for you reap whatever you sow." That is one of the most powerful truths we can live our lives by. Because what it points to is it points to the spiritual law known as cause and effect. A spiritual law known as cause and effect. And what that means is that for any action, there's going to be a reaction. For any thought that you hold, any action you take, any event you participate in, there's a reaction to that event. Now, what Paul says, what our master teacher said, what the Fillmores taught, was that that action would be in line with what you did. So negative action, negative response. Positive action, positive response. And this is something that exists across all levels of nature. From the lowliest beings down to the highest, most evolved people walking among us. Everyone is susceptible to this idea that what you create, what you put out, the actions you take, cause a reaction. Everybody is susceptible to it. And it doesn't matter how much good you're manifesting, how much you're aware of the Christ presence within you, you're manifesting this. By the way, it's my belief that there is no such thing as somebody who is wholly, entirely evil. It's my belief that even just much good is in there. Let's just call it undeveloped good. All right? And that's important. Because it's that little bit of good that we can spark to make a difference in the lives of the people around us. It's that little bit of good that we can ignite through setting out the cause that's a good and positive cause. We ignite that good in somebody else, and that good spreads. You see, it's cause and effect. And so what do we do about this? How do we begin building up these positive causes in our life? You know, earlier Kyle talked about the last Unity Explorers class that we have coming up this Wednesday night. You're all invited. Nobody had to come to the first two to come to the last one. It's this Wednesday evening. We're going to talk about prayer. But in the first class, we got into a wonderful discussion about heaven and hell. I just wanted to make sure nobody was going to just have little twitches, because we've had the Bible and I've mentioned heaven and hell in unity on a Sunday morning. I'm going somewhere. Just stay with me for a moment. We had a wonderful discussion where we came to the understanding that each one of us creates our own heaven and our own hell, and we walk in that heaven and hell as an angel or a devil of our own choosing. Right? So each one of us creates that heaven and that hell. Now that's not entirely me, that's Ernest Wilson that said it exactly that way. But I want to share with you something that he wrote in his book, Like a Miracle, because he talks about an experience he had where he said that very thing in a church service. And he, like many of us, we don't always remember what we say. Sometimes stuff just kind of comes and you just say it. So he didn't remember saying it exactly this way. But it touched somebody. And this man came up to him a year later and he said, you said something in a service that made a difference in my life. Ever since then, I've been taking notes, just making little observances about what I see in the world. And these are some of the things he wrote. He said, here I've jotted down some of the simple thoughts that came to me as I began working on the idea that you planted in my mind. That's the idea that we make our own heaven and hell. So he wrote, no matter who you are, if you push the right button, the light will come on. Take a crack at somebody and you'll get it right back, either from them or somebody else. say, if I were he, I would certainly do things better, and it's like sending out an application for that kind of experience. Play with fire and you will get burned. Ignore the traffic rules and you're inviting trouble. Keep on and you're sure to get it. Knock a competitor's product and the prospect may wonder why you feel you have to do so. I wondered why nobody ever gave me credit for a job well done until I realized that I took other people for granted. When I wanted more heaven and less hell, I found the only way to get it was to try to make it so for people around me. He then goes on, and he says he grinned and looked up from reading and said, I used to give them hell, now I try to give them heaven. I love that idea, though, that idea of giving them heaven. That I used to give them hell, and now I give them heaven. You know, one of my mentors, I'll find the quote later. One of my mentors, Reverend Bob Barth, used to say that from time to time at the end of a service. He would say, all right, now let's go out and give them heaven. And it got to the point where they put a banner at the back of the sanctuary so that as we walked out every week, we would see, give them heaven, Reverend Bob Barth, and would remember to make that our commitment as we went into the week. But friends, it is that simple and that difficult. Because you see, if we really want to make a difference in our world, if we want to change our world, it begins with that commitment to give them heaven. It begins with the commitment to go out and to be the positive cause to somebody else's negative effect. It begins with our commitment to respond in kindness, to respond in love. It begins with our commitment to sign up for the campaign of consciousness and spend 40 days campaigning in our own consciousness, to remember to respond in kindness and in love. Now, let's just get something out of the way right now, up front, before we get too far into this. This is not going to be easy. It sounds easy. So, yeah, that's fine. I just respond in kindness. It is not as easy as it sounds. But I also know that every one of us knows because we've experienced it. When I put out positive intentions into the world seems to get better as a result. When I put out negativity into the world, it tends to get worse as a result. So because we've experienced it, we know the power that we have. Like I said, it's not going to be easy. I mean, after all, how are those people going to know they're stupid if we don't go tell them they're stupid? And then we are just shocked when they reply in kind to us and call us names, cause and effect. You see, what we put out is what we put back. And here's the part where it's not just going to be so easy, because this is not just something that applies to how we interact. We get that example of, I post something on Facebook, somebody yells back at me, I yell back at them. We understand that. The part that we've forgotten is that this is a spiritual law. It applies more than to the things we do. It applies to the things that we think. It applies to the things that we believe. If you walk away from that conversation and under your breath go, moron, you've just done it. If you walk away even thinking it, you've fallen just short of that idea of being that positive cause. And that's okay. Listen, like I said, this is not going to be easy. This is difficult work. Please don't start beating yourself up about, oh, I shouldn't have said that to that person. You see, what we can do is make our commitment to get better, to learn and grow. This world that we're experiencing in, it's a horrible place for everybody to get along and to be perfect and to agree with everything all the time. It is the perfect place for us to learn and to grow as people. And as long as you're making your commitment to learn and grow, you're on the right path. But it's a path we have to speed up on because, friends, the world could use breaking that cycle of negativity. I moved my bookmark, so give me just a second, and I'll find this quote because it was very interesting. I was reading this book, and it's Like a Miracle by Ernest Wilson. And as I was reading it, I came across a quote from Charles Dickens. And it's from his first chapter of, what's the word I'm looking for? Is it Great Expectations? Here we are. So this is what Wilson wrote. He said, so as Dickens wrote of his own days, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of our despair. And I read it and went, wow, that kind of sounds like it resonates for today. And there's this duality going on. Then I went on and read what Wilson wrote. He wrote that these words have a relevancy for today as for the time of the French Revolution in which Dickens was writing. He wrote this book in 1971. And then he goes on to ask the question, will it always be this way? Will we always look at the words Charles Dickens wrote and go, yep, that's the way it is? Ernest Wilson didn't believe so. I don't believe so. You see, I have hope. I have hope that we can break this cycle because of all of you. I have hope because I'm standing here looking out at people sitting in this building and people watching us on live stream that are powerful spiritual warriors that are willing to go out and be the good in the world. That are willing to be light and love and joy and to post on Facebook as angels of heaven, not as avenging angels of hell. I know that you are all capable of doing that. And because of that, that gives me hope. Because, friends, the time to do something is now. And it's easy to sit around and go, well, what should I do? How do I do this? And I am not going to tell you what to do. That is not my job. My job is to give you the spiritual tools that you need to use those tools to be able to make the change in our world. But the simple fact is, the law of cause and effect is operating whether we like it or not. And so if we respond in anger, we are going to get more anger. If we respond with a reasoned, sensible dialogue, we open up the opportunity for more reasoned, sensible dialogues with one another. What we create, the cause we put out, is the effect we will get. This does not mean we shy away from difficult conversations. What this means is that we have those difficult conversations from a place of respect, from a place of love, from a place of seeking to learn and grow. Because if the house is on fire and we all kind of gather together and do what we can to put the fire out, we can save the house. If the house is on fire and we all stand around and go, oh, let's go over here because I don't really like smoke and fire, we're going to wind up with no house and nowhere to go. We have the power to make those changes. And it begins with making that commitment to respond in kindness, with making that commitment not to just stick your head in the sand and pretend like it's not going on or there's nothing going on or there's nothing I can do about it, but to turn the other cheek away from responding in anger, away from responding with hurt feelings, and instead respond from a place of love, a place of kindness, place of peace, a place that furthers the consciousness of the kingdom of heaven. Because the simple truth is, every one of us has been born blessed. We've been born sacred. We've been born holy. We have the power to change the world. And that power begins by being aware of how we are responding to the causes that are thrust upon us, and making sure that that response comes from a centered place of love, from the presence of God within you, from the peace of God within you. And when we respond from that place, the effect is we get more good in the world and less negativity. And so I bless all of you on your journey. Because as I said earlier, I know that this room, both those present and those virtually with us, that every one of you is a powerful spiritual warrior. And that every one of you is willing, able, and ready to go out and to spread the cause for kindness, for love, and for peace. To stand in the face of anger, of hatred, of divisiveness, to be willing to have the difficult conversations that we need to have. Because, friends, the house is on fire. And we have the tools to put it out. All right? God bless you all.